Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the C Morning Show right here on C Today. Just before we, enter this discussion or talk show for the first talk show of the day, Paul and myself, we're both parents, and we've known, and we talk about how the interpersonal skills are very vital, especially introducing them to our children since early age. It is essential for character development and also can help us develop relationship and resolve problems.
This is the reason why interpersonal skills must be instilled from childhood, as it will help children to bond with others around them and function well in adulthood, both in personal and professional circles.
But unfortunately, there are many children who hardly communicate or interact with others due to several factors. Now, what causes this and what can parents do to develop and improve our kids' interpersonal skills?
Well, to find out the answers to some of these questions, we're now going to connect with personal growth clinical psychologist and friend of the program, Rachel Ponimal. Good morning, Rachel. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
So, Rachel, can you start by explaining to us what are interpersonal skills and why is it so important to start kids off early and teaching them these skills?
So interpersonal skills are behaviors, tactics a person uses to interact with others. It's also called as people skills, social skills, social intelligence.
Right.
And we use this all the time, knowingly and unknowingly, when dealing with others, for example, in a workplace, social situations, or even just like between friends and family.
Yeah.
And it's important because humans are social creatures. Thus, interpersonal skills are one of the most important and basic skills needed for children and for adults to have a good quality of life.
And, it's just, I remember when I was kids, I was a shy girl. It would be very hard for me to, first off, I would love to see, my other friends, they can just say, hi, how are you? My name is Rachel, right? Or my name is Kathy. But for me, it would take me time to be have that courage for me to say, hi, how are you? I was a shy girl before and whatnot. But I remember this just because of, I think, my personality, right? And then my mom would tell me, you have to be you have to be confident because you like to have friends and whatnot. But right now, I see that children are more difficult, to have that confidence or that interpersonal skill because first, they have so many gadgets. I think they're just aware, since they're born, they have TVs and whatnot, gadgets for them to play around and whatnot, and they see that's more interesting other than maybe having an interaction with real people. And then there comes the COVID, it takes off 2.5 years for kids more isolated at home and whatnot. Now, are these, some of the factors that really makes it difficult for kids, to have this interpersonal skills and whatnot, and how can we develop their skill to be better?
So everything you said is correct. Personality is one of it because I was like you. So I was pretty shy when I was a kid, but now I've grown skills.
We glow and grow.
Yeah. So it's an important factor aside from personality and COVID, obviously, because of the social isolation, the limited social opportunities. There are also environment, personal experiences, maybe the child themselves have been bullied or cyberbullied in their own experience.
Yeah.
Also cognitive and stimulating. So the family environment, children who grow up in families where there's a lot of fighting or tension around them, may be less likely to develop good social skills.
Yeah.
Maybe they would model the aggression instead. Or maybe they have parents who just like to avoid each other. Then they would, learn that and avoid those when they're faced with a problem.
Wow, I never actually thought of that. The relationship between a mother and a father can actually impact the child's development of interpersonal skills then.
Because children mostly learn modeling from mirroring.
Yes.
And the closest people they can mirror are their parents, obviously, and the person they see most. So it's important too for parents to model good social skills. So naturally, children will just, follow along, copy what mom did or copy what dad did.
Oh, makes sense.
Yeah.
So, Rachel, let's talk a little bit about what Carol touched on there. Kids now, most of them have access to gadgets. I could argue that we now have the technology, even though we're in lockdown or homeschooled, that we can still have digital face-to-face connections with people, or is that not the same thing? Do we actually need face-to-face physical interactions in order to develop these interpersonal skills? Because it seems to me that everyone agrees that gadgets are actually an obstacle for kids to develop their skills.
So there's good and bad in everything.
Yes.
It's good that it's effective and it's just there. But research has shown that screen time, so not just like online using for social, but like screen time in general, is negatively associated with social skills development in toddlers. Specifically, the more time they spend with devices, the more their social development suffers in areas of relating and interacting with, others face to face and compliant with directions, and also the ability to help others, in real life. I would say yes, it's different, socializing via online and socializing face to face, because even adults ourselves, we can tell the difference. Like there's a different vibe to it if you actually meet a person,
Yeah.
go get dinner together.
And
And what parents can do to encourage more healthy social development is encouraging time limits
yeah.
on devices, on digital media, on TV, or maybe you can use like parental control. That could be one. So it ensures that your children can have a balance of screen time and non-screen time, and enough in-person social engagement.
Yeah.
You can talk regularly with your children about their relationship, about the things they did in school today.
Yeah.
And this can help identify concerns about if they're having social issues, if they're having like other problems of their own. And the third, as I mentioned before, is to be a good role model of healthy device habits. So if you're cooking, if you're in a bathroom, try not to use your phone, parents, because children will copy this
Guilty.
behavior.
That's actually a very good
Yeah.
point. By the way, even before we had gadgets and smartphones and all these tabs, we always knew that too much TV, that counts as screen time. Too
Right.
much TV would be bad for us.
Yeah.
It's just that before we had on-demand or streaming services, we had to follow what the TV showed. So
Yeah.
you can't really have too much because you'd watch your
Yes.
program, you'd be done.
But-
We didn't have things like binging back
Yeah,
then.
and
as
but
well, right?
commercials was fun also back in the days, anyways. But Rachel, going back to what you said before, how it's very different to have these, interpersonal reaction or together, face to face, or through gadgets. Or excuse me, because I remember my kids when they were going online, when they were still online for school. I remember they're just so smart. They're gadget savvy, right? So whenever they don't want to speak or they don't want to see the teachers and whatnot, or they're like, the camera was on them or the spotlight was on them and they forgot the answer, they just turn off the camera.
Oh, really?
And I'm like,
They figured that out.
I was like, how do you know? Like, you can't do that. And, they're just so quick to learn and adapt to it, right? And it's just very different when you're seeing mimicking, other people kind of behavior to the responses or the responses that they have towards what you're saying when you're meeting real person. And I think that is just, what every human needs. So back to this interpersonal skill again, Rachel. We know that since babies, they already have their memories, right? So they're already learning, they're already seeing whatnot, seeing their parents, their siblings, and their loved ones around them. So since what age, since how young should we really teach them and guide them for this interpersonal skills of them, and how can they develop, and how can we improve as parents to for these skills?
So it's definitely there's not an age to it. So the more that you can talk to your babies and toddlers, the better it is. So the earlier the better. If we're talking about specific skills, then the answer would be as many. But it's also important for you to refer back to your child's developmental milestones, because each age, each year, each month even, they have different developmental milestones. Refer back to that. But overall, you can, start teaching your children at a younger age to, use appropriate greetings, or how to initiate conversations, initiating activities with their peers, or maybe when you go to a restaurant and let them, let them order
Right.
your meal, things like that. Encourage them to do more activities with their friends, maybe join a school club, things like that.
Yeah.
Extracurricular activities.
I just want to add on just a little bit on this, Paul and Rachel. You know how nowadays parents were not, there's a lot of like parents or parent teachings and whatnot saying that you cannot say no to your children. There's other way that you can say no, right? But how can we also make them realize that no is also could be a positive thing for them, right? Let's say there is a situation that it's not out of their consent, they can say no. But if we don't teach them how to say no since they're kids, how can they also know that no is also okay for them?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, Rachel, I want to know your take on that.
Okay. Well, this is a tricky situation, 'cause
Right.
depending on the situation, right?
Yeah.
What the parent is saying no at. If it's on, on a certain activity, such as like binging TV like late at night, then you can say no and provide your answers and your justification towards it, why they cannot do it.
Right.
So instead of just saying no, explain it to them why they can't do it. Because sometimes as parents, we tend to just say no and then not provide a reason.
Yeah.
And that's when the children sometimes get confused, like, but why? But why?
You do
that's
it.
why we need to we need to explain it to that no, because it's already late at night and you have school tomorrow and you have to have enough rest.
Yes.
Things like that. So building the habit of what's the reason, what's the meaning behind it is a good skill too for children to have, for them to reflect on the action too.
Yeah, and if I can add, what I do at home is I provide a solution or an alternative. For example, I want sweets. I'm like, no, it's kind of too late, but you can have some tomorrow. Or you can have that,
Right.
we can do that this weekend. Or you can watch more TV tomorrow when it's not the school day or the day after. I think solutions will give a new target for the child as well, so they're not just blindly being turned down, but at least they can look forward to something else as well. I say no to my kids all the time, but I say, but maybe later. That's my way of saying no. So, Rachel, let's have a look at some of the possible long-term impacts for an underdevelopment of interpersonal skills for children. How can this impact somebody in the long run? And what are some of the things or behavioral changes that we can see if this isn't developed at an early age?
So communication, social skills, interpersonal skills, can affect three aspects of a child's development, which are physical, psychological, and cognitive development. They're kind of, tied with each other, of course. An example would be on a child's mental health. Could be seen through behaviors such as avoiding social interactions more than they normally do. So that's kind of a sign there, like a flag there.
Yeah.
But socially, children need the skills to make friends, learn, or even just like, letting people know what they want, what they don't want. And they can do this with strong communication skills. If they don't socialize, then it would affect their mental health. As in, they go out less, they have less activities throughout the day, they don't spend, enough energy for their body to, just like build muscle in general.
Yeah.
And then from there, behaviorally, when children aren't able to express themselves through verbal words, it would then lead to frustration.
Yeah.
And as you may know, sometimes it leads to temper tantrums.
Yes.
But from there, as a result, the child's confidence and self-esteem will be majorly affected.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. So something that we do need to focus on. Thank you so much, Rachel, for this more in-depth look into how we can develop our child or children's interpersonal skills. Always great catching up with you. Have yourself a great weekend. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you,
Always a
Rachel. See
pleasure.
you soon.